The abandoned trade station hung like a rusted jewel against the backdrop of the Centauri Nebula, its once gleaming corridors now dulled by decades of interstellar traffic and political neglect. Ashley Thompson stood at the entrance of her family's candy shop, her fingers tracing the worn metal framework of the storefront that had been her home and heritage for generations. The shop was a marvel of controlled chaos. Transparent containment fields shimmered around intricate candy-making apparatus that looked more like a cross between a chemical laboratory and an artist's studio. Holographic displays flickered with molecular diagrams, temperature readouts, and complex flavor matrices that would make most xenobiologists weep with confusion. Outside the shop's protective barrier, the station buzzed with a tense undercurrent. This was no ordinary trading post. It was the last neutral ground in a sector rapidly being consumed by corporate interests, a place where the last vestiges of independent businesses fought for survival against the ravenous expansion of the Galactic Trade Consortium. Ashley's grandmother had first established the shop nearly 60 years ago, when interstellar travel was still a novelty and human traders were considered curiosities. What had begun as a simple confectionery had evolved into something far more complex. Each recipe was a carefully guarded secret, passed down through generations like a sacred text. The current display case held what appeared to be ordinary candies to the untrained eye. But to those who understood, these were masterpieces of culinary engineering, crystalline structures that changed flavor based on the consumer's body temperature, molecular confections that could detect and neutralize toxins, sweets that could heal minor injuries or provide targeted nutritional supplements. A group of alien traders passed by, their multiple eyes lingering on the shop's display. The Zorn-Tak delegation, a species known for their ruthless trading practices, had been particularly interested in the Thompson confectionery's secrets. Their translucent exoskeletons shifted colors as they discussed the shop in hushed tones, unaware that the shop's advanced acoustic baffling was capturing every word. "The human's defenses are impressive," clicked the lead trader, his mandibles moving in a complex pattern of communication. "But everyone has a breaking point." Ashley allowed herself a small smile. They had no idea. The station's ambient lighting shifted, mimicking the day-night cycle of a long-forgotten planetary homeworld. Most of the current inhabitants had never seen a natural sky. Their entire existence played out in these massive space structures that served as trading hubs, living spaces, and political battlegrounds. A notification pinged on the shop's primary communication interface, another buyout offer from the Galactic Trade Consortium. The numbers were astronomical, enough to buy several small planetary systems, but money had never been the point. Each candy was a story, each recipe was a piece of human history. The shop's primary defense system hummed to life, a nearly invisible web of quantum-encrypted security fields that made military-grade protection look like child's play. It was more than just a protection mechanism. It was a statement, a declaration that some things were not for sale. Ashley's fingers danced across a holographic interface, adjusting the molecular structure of a new experimental candy. It was designed to help species with completely different metabolic systems enjoy a universal taste experience. Years of research, countless failed attempts, generations of family knowledge, all condensed into a single, perfect creation. Outside, the station continued its endless dance. Ships arrived and departed. Traders negotiated. Entire economic ecosystems rose and fell in the span of hours. But here, in this small corner of the universe, the Thompson confectionery remained, unchanged, unbroken. A low chime indicated an incoming transmission. Ashley's eyes narrowed as she recognized the encryption signature. The Galactic Trade Consortium was making its move, but they had no idea what they were about to encounter. This was more than a candy shop. This was a fortress. This was a legacy. The Thompson family recipe book was more than a collection of ingredients. It was a compressed universe of scientific innovation, culinary artistry, and generational knowledge that defied conventional understanding. Ashley spread the holographic pages across her workstation, each molecular diagram telling a story of human creativity that stretched back generations. Her great-grandmother had been a biochemist working in extreme environment research. Her grandmother, a pastry chef with an obsession for molecular gastronomy. Her mother, a quantum physicist who saw food as the ultimate expression of scientific potential. And now Ashley, the culmination of this extraordinary lineage. The current project lay before her, a candy that could adapt to nearly any biological system. Most species had distinct metabolic constraints that made universal food experiences impossible. Humans had always been different. Where others saw limitations, Ashley saw challenges waiting to be solved. She activated the primary research interface, a holographic display that transformed the entire workshop into a three-dimensional laboratory. Quantum simulation algorithms began parsing potential molecular configurations, each iteration more complex than the last. The system wasn't just analyzing. It was learning, adapting, evolving with each calculation. A notification flashed, an incoming transmission from the Galactic Research Collaborative. Most independent researchers would jump at their attention. Ashley knew better. She had seen how quickly scientific curiosity could transform into corporate predation. The transmission opened, revealing Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, a xenobiological researcher Ashley had worked with previously. His holographic image flickered with an unusual intensity. "You need to see this," he said without preamble, transmitting a series of spectral analysis charts. The data was extraordinary. Preliminary scans of her recent candy prototypes had revealed properties that went far beyond simple nutrition. The molecular structures showed adaptive capabilities that could potentially revolutionize medical treatment across multiple species. "They don't understand what they're looking at," Marcus continued. "Your work isn't just confectionery. It's a breakthrough in interspecies biological compatibility." Ashley knew the implications. Her candies weren't just food. They were a form of communication, a way of bridging biological differences that had previously seemed insurmountable. Each recipe was a complex algorithm that could potentially solve nutritional challenges for species with completely different metabolic requirements. The station's environmental systems hummed, creating a controlled atmosphere that was part laboratory, part kitchen, part defense mechanism. Containment fields shimmered around experimental batches, each one a potential solution to problems most researchers hadn't even conceived. A batch of prototype candies sat in a specialized preservation unit. To the untrained eye, they looked like nothing more than crystalline formations, but each piece was a marvel of scientific engineering. Adaptive molecular structures that could modify their chemical composition based on the consumer's biological needs. The Galactic Trade Consortium had been trying to understand her family's techniques for decades. They saw value only in commodification. But Ashley understood something deeper. This was about connection, about understanding, about showing that human creativity could solve problems others considered impossible. Her communication systems picked up increased chatter from the station's primary trade networks. Someone was asking questions, probing. The vultures were circling. A holographic display tracked the information flow. Ashley watched as multiple corporate research divisions began cross-referencing her published technical papers. They were looking for weaknesses, searching for an angle of attack. But they didn't understand. Each apparent vulnerability was actually a carefully constructed defense mechanism. The recipe book flickered to life, projecting a three-dimensional genealogy of scientific achievement. Generations of Thompson women, each one pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Not through brute force, but through creativity, through an understanding that true innovation comes from seeing connections others missed. Ashley began preparing a new experimental batch. The station's sophisticated equipment hummed to life, a symphony of scientific precision. Each movement was calculated, each ingredient selection a strategic decision. Outside, the universe continued its endless dance of commerce and conflict. But here, in this small space, something extraordinary was brewing. A candy that could change everything. The infiltration team moved with practiced precision through the station's maintenance corridors, 5 members of the Galactic Trade Consortium's most advanced corporate espionage unit, each selected for their unique ability to bypass security systems. They represented the pinnacle of non-human technological adaptation, cybernetically enhanced operatives who had dismantled the most secure research facilities across multiple star systems. Their target, the Thompson Confectionery. Lead operative Verzek, a genetically modified Krellnax operative, reviewed the mission parameters. His neural interface pulsed with computational algorithms designed to crack even the most sophisticated security systems. Previous missions had fallen like dominoes before their technological superiority. This would be no different. Or so they believed. The first layer of security was deceptively simple. Standard station maintenance protocols suggested multiple access points to the candy shop's service areas. But each potential entry point was a carefully constructed illusion. Quantum-locked perimeter fields shifted and recalibrated faster than any known scanning technology could track. "Preliminary scans are inconclusive," muttered Kira, the team's sensory specialist. Her multispectral vision implants flickered uncertainly. Something was wrong. The shop's defensive systems didn't just block intrusion. They seemed to be actively confusing their sensors. Verzek's neural link began to destabilize. Computational pathways that had never failed before started to blur. Fragments of irrelevant data cascaded through his perception. Recipe algorithms, flavor profiles, molecular diagrams that made no logical sense. The team's infiltration suits, designed to interface with and override any known security system, began to malfunction. Holographic camouflage flickered. Communication channels filled with nonsensical data bursts that resembled complex culinary instructions more than any recognizable communication protocol. One of the junior operatives, a recently augmented syndicate recruit, suddenly burst into uncontrollable laughter. His neural interface was displaying an endless stream of candy recipes, each more absurd and mathematically complex than the last. Molecular diagrams transformed into intricate puzzles that seemed to actively resist comprehension. "Something's interfering with our systems," Verzek growled, attempting to reset his primary computational matrix. What they didn't realize was that Ashley Thompson had been preparing for this moment her entire life. The shop's defense system wasn't just a security measure. It was a carefully crafted intellectual trap. Each scan, each attempt to penetrate the shop's systems, triggered a cascading algorithm designed to do more than just block intrusion. It was meant to overwhelm. Computational systems began to generate increasingly complex candy recipes. Mathematical models that defied standard logic erupted through their neural interfaces. What appeared to be simple data became a weaponized form of culinary confusion. Kira's sensory implants started to produce hallucinogenic displays of impossible confectionery landscapes. Molecular structures danced and transformed, creating visual puzzles that actively resisted comprehension. Her mind struggled to process information that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. The maintenance corridor began to feel strange. Environmental systems that should have been neutral started to produce subtle molecular changes. The air itself seemed to carry complex flavor profiles that played havoc with the infiltration team's sensory capabilities. Verzek's final coherent thought was a mixture of confusion and grudging respect. This wasn't just a defense system. It was an intellectual warfare mechanism designed to do more than protect. It was meant to utterly defeat any attempt at unauthorized access. The Galactic Trade Consortium had underestimated one fundamental truth. Humans don't just create defenses. They create puzzles, challenges, intellectual labyrinths that transform protection into an art form. As the infiltration team's systems continued to destabilize, Ashley Thompson watched from her shop's secure monitoring station. Each breakdown was carefully logged. Each system failure another piece of data in her ongoing research. They had come to steal her secrets. Instead, they had become part of the experiment. The shop's environmental systems hummed with a quiet satisfaction. Another attempt defeated. Another lesson learned. And somewhere, deep in the computational matrix of the defense system, a new candy recipe began to take shape. The first research station hit was the Orion 9 Advanced Molecular Gastronomy Laboratory. What began as a routine data analysis quickly transformed into a nightmare of confectionery chaos. Initial reports suggested a simple system malfunction, but as the stolen data from the Thompson confectionery began to propagate through their computational networks, something extraordinary happened. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a senior researcher monitoring the primary data intake, watched in horrified fascination as the first molecular cascade began. What appeared to be standard recipe data started to interact with the station's research systems in impossible ways. The first explosion was almost beautiful. A perfect sphere of iridescent sugar crystals erupted from the primary research terminal. Each crystal sang with a different harmonic frequency, creating a sound that was simultaneously a melody and a warning. Researchers found themselves unexpectedly experiencing complex flavor profiles that seemed to emerge from the very air around them. Computational systems began producing increasingly elaborate candy recipes. What should have been simple data streams transformed into intricate mathematical equations that defied standard computational logic. The station's artificial intelligence struggled to comprehend the incoming information, its carefully constructed algorithms breaking down under the weight of culinary complexity. Secondary research wings experienced their own unique manifestations. In the xenobiology section, data streams produced self-generating foam that consumed entire laboratory sections. The foam was a marvel of molecular engineering, each bubble containing a perfect microcosm of flavor, temperature, and scientific possibility. Communication channels across the research station filled with increasingly absurd culinary instructions. Serious scientific discussions devolved into passionate debates about molecular sugar structures and the philosophical implications of taste. Dr. Rodriguez's personal communication device suddenly began printing out a 300-page dissertation on the evolutionary potential of confectionery science. The document was written in a language that simultaneously existed as both a scientific treatise and a complex recipe. 3 research assistants found themselves spontaneously creating perfect soufflés while discussing quantum entanglement. Another group discovered they could communicate complex mathematical theorems through nothing more than carefully arranged sugar crystals. The Galactic Science Consortium's primary monitoring station received the first distress signal. But it wasn't a typical emergency broadcast. Instead, it was a perfectly composed molecular symphony that described the entire incident in a form of edible mathematics. Backup systems triggered, containment protocols activated, but each attempt to control the situation only seemed to make things more complex. In the station's central research hub, a massive holographic display began to generate increasingly elaborate candy designs. What should have been a simple data visualization transformed into a living, breathing artwork of culinary possibility. Mathematical equations danced and transformed, becoming 3-dimensional representations of flavor potential. Dr. Rodriguez realized something profound was happening. This wasn't just a system failure. This was an intellectual intervention. The stolen data wasn't a simple recipe. It was a carefully constructed intellectual trap. Each research station had experienced its own unique manifestation of culinary chaos. On the Jupiter research platform, entire computational banks began producing nothing but increasingly complex dessert algorithms. The Proxima Centauri Xenoscience Institute found its environmental systems generating perfect sugar sculptures that defied known physical laws. Communication between research stations became increasingly surreal. Scientific reports were now written in a language that was simultaneously a recipe, a mathematical proof, and a work of abstract art. The Galactic Trade Consortium's initial attempt to steal the Thompson confectionery's secrets had transformed into something far more significant. This was more than industrial espionage. This was a demonstration of human creativity that defied conventional understanding. As containment teams struggled to understand what was happening, Ashley Thompson watched the unfolding events through her shop's advanced monitoring systems. Each report, each emergency transmission was carefully logged. Another layer of the experiment, another piece of data in her ongoing research. They had come to steal her secrets. Instead, they had become part of something much larger. A perfect, delicious revolution. The emergency session of the Galactic Commercial Tribunal convened under unprecedented circumstances. Holographic representatives from dozens of species filled the circular chamber, their collective confusion palpable in the charged atmosphere. Lead prosecutor Zorak Thax of the Vordak Merchant Syndicate approached the central platform, her translucent exoskeleton shifting colors with barely contained frustration. She activated the primary display, showing the catastrophic aftermath of the Thompson confectionery data infiltration. "This is an act of deliberate sabotage," Thax proclaimed, her voice resonating through multiple translation matrices. "One small human business has caused unprecedented damage to research facilities across 3 star systems." The holographic evidence was spectacular. Research stations transformed into impossible landscapes of sugar and computational chaos. Entire wings of advanced scientific facilities now existed as living sculptures of molecular gastronomy. What should have been a straightforward case of corporate espionage had become something far more complex. Ashley Thompson sat calmly at the defense table, a single digital folder containing generations of family research positioned precisely before her. Her great-grandmother's original research notes, her grandmother's culinary innovations, her mother's quantum computational work, all carefully preserved and meticulously documented. The tribunal's chief adjudicator, a crystalline being from the Zorn Collaborative, studied the evidence with multiple sensory organs. "Explain," the being demanded, its voice a complex harmonic that suggested both curiosity and barely contained irritation. Ashley stood, her movements precise and calculated. "What you're seeing is not sabotage," she began. "It's an unintended demonstration of adaptive molecular research that your systems were not prepared to process." Each research facility had experienced a unique manifestation of the stolen data. The Proxima Station's entire computational network had transformed into a living, breathing culinary research ecosystem. The Jupiter research platform now generated dessert algorithms that solved complex mathematical proofs as a side effect of their computational processes. Cathax's secondary neural cluster began to overheat from the sheer complexity of the situation. "You weaponized a recipe," she accused, mandibles clicking with frustration. "I developed a protective system," Ashley corrected, "one designed to prevent unauthorized access to generations of scientific research." The tribunal chamber erupted in a cacophony of translations and side conversations. Representatives from various scientific institutions began to realize something profound was happening. This wasn't just about a stolen recipe. This was about the fundamental nature of human innovation. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, the xenobiological researcher who had previously worked with Ashley, took the stand as an expert witness. His testimony was a masterpiece of scientific diplomacy. The Thompson family's work represents a fundamental breakthrough in cross-species molecular compatibility, he explained. What appears to be a defensive mechanism is actually an advanced form of scientific communication. Each recipe is a complex algorithm designed to demonstrate the potential of adaptive molecular structures. The tribunal's environmental systems began to subtly change. Holographic representations flickered, momentarily displaying complex molecular diagrams that seemed to dance with their own internal logic. Thax's frustration reached a boiling point. "They destroyed millions in research infrastructure," she shouted, her translation matrix struggling to capture the full emotional intensity. Ashley's response was measured. "They attempted to steal proprietary research without understanding its complexity. The system was designed to protect intellectual property through demonstration, not destruction." The chief adjudicator's crystalline structure pulsed with an internal light of deep contemplation. What had begun as a simple case of potential corporate litigation was transforming into something far more significant. This was more than a legal hearing. This was a moment of first contact, not between species, but between fundamentally different approaches to scientific research and intellectual property. As the tribunal continued, Ashley knew the real battle was just beginning. They had come to punish her. Instead, they would be forced to understand her. The holographic displays continued to generate increasingly complex molecular diagrams. Each one a story, each one a challenge. A challenge that only humans could have conceived. The hearing entered its third standard cycle, a marathon of scientific complexity that had transformed from a simple legal proceeding into something far more profound. The central chamber of the Galactic judicial complex had become a living museum of human ingenuity. Ashley Thompson's demonstration began with what appeared to be a simple portable molecular synthesizer. But those who understood knew this was anything but simple. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, standing as a character witness, activated the first holographic projection. Generations of Thompson family research materialized around the chamber, a three-dimensional genealogy of scientific achievement that left the assembled delegates breathless. The projection showed more than just a family history. It was a narrative of human problem-solving that defied conventional understanding. Each generation had approached seemingly impossible challenges with a combination of creativity, stubborn determination, and an almost magical ability to see connections others missed. Ashley's great-grandmother's early research appeared first. A biochemist working in extreme environmental conditions, she had developed molecular structures that could adapt to wildly different atmospheric pressures. Her initial work had been dismissed as theoretical nonsense by her contemporaries. Her grandmother's contributions followed. A pastry chef who saw cooking as a form of advanced chemistry. Her recipe books were actually complex mathematical models that predicted flavor interactions across multiple biological systems. What appeared to be simple cooking notes were actually groundbreaking scientific documents. Ashley's mother had been a quantum physicist who saw food as the ultimate expression of scientific potential. Her research had bridged multiple scientific disciplines, creating computational models that could predict molecular interactions with unprecedented accuracy. And now Ashley stood as the culmination of this extraordinary lineage. The Galactic Trade Consortium's lead prosecutor, Zora Kathax, attempted to interrupt. "This is irrelevant," she insisted, her exoskeleton shifting colors with frustration. The chief adjudicator silenced her with a complex harmonic gesture. The hearing would continue. Ashley began her primary demonstration. The portable molecular synthesizer came to life, generating a series of candies that defied conventional understanding. Each piece was a living testament to human scientific potential. The first candy adapted its molecular structure based on the metabolic needs of whoever consumed it. Sensors throughout the chamber tracked its impossible transformations. A Zorn delegate discovered the candy providing precisely the nutritional supplements his species required. A Krellnax researcher found the same piece generating a complex enzyme that supported cellular regeneration. "This isn't just a confection," Ashley explained. "This is a breakthrough in interspecies biological compatibility." Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward with additional evidence. Decades of research documents, carefully preserved and meticulously cataloged. Each page told a story of human innovation that went far beyond simple corporate interests. The hearing chamber itself seemed to change. Holographic displays generated increasingly complex molecular diagrams. The environmental systems began to subtly resonate with the scientific information being presented. Kathax's neural systems began to overheat from the sheer complexity of the demonstration. What had begun as a simple case of potential corporate litigation was transforming into a moment of scientific revelation. The Thompson family's research was more than a collection of documents. It was a comprehensive approach to understanding molecular interactions that transcended traditional scientific boundaries. Ashley's final demonstration involved a series of candies that could communicate complex scientific information through flavor profiles. Each piece was a living data transmission, a method of sharing knowledge that went beyond traditional communication methods. The chief adjudicator's crystalline structure pulsed with an internal light of deep contemplation. This was more than a legal hearing. This was a moment of first contact, not between species, but between fundamentally different approaches to scientific research and intellectual property. As the hearing continued, the assembled delegates realized something profound. The Thompson confectionery was not just a business. It was a living research institution that challenged everything they understood about scientific innovation. Somewhere in the complex mathematical models being displayed, a new understanding was taking shape, understanding that only humans could have conceived. The hearing's recess brought an unexpected convergence of support from across the galactic scientific community. Species that had previously shown little interest in human innovation now gathered around Ashley Thompson, their collective curiosity overriding centuries of interstellar political boundaries. Professor Zorn Clara, head of the Xenobiological Research Collaborative, approached Ashley with a delegation of researchers. Her multifaceted sensory organs studied Ashley with an intensity that suggested both scientific fascination and profound respect. "Your family's work," Clara began, her translation matrix capturing nuanced undertones of excitement, "represents a paradigm shift in our understanding of molecular adaptability." The hearing chamber had transformed into an impromptu scientific symposium. Researchers from dozens of star systems shared data, compared notes, and marveled at the Thompson family's comprehensive approach to scientific innovation. The Proxima Centauri Culinary Institute sent its chief researcher, Dr. Marcos Santiago, who brought with him a comprehensive analysis of the unexpected sugar crystal algorithms generated during the initial data infiltration. His report revealed that the seemingly chaotic molecular interactions were actually a sophisticated communication system disguised as a defensive mechanism. "This is not just protection," Santiago explained to the assembled delegates. "This is a method of knowledge transmission that operates on levels we're only beginning to understand." Video transmissions from various research stations told a remarkable story. Where the Thompson confectionary's data had spread, scientific breakthroughs had occurred. The Orion 9 laboratory had inadvertently solved a decades-old problem in quantum entanglement while trying to decrypt the complex recipe algorithms. The Jupiter research platform had generated medical treatment protocols that could potentially revolutionize genetic therapy across multiple species. Dr. Elena Rodriguez presented additional evidence, her holographic presentation showing the cumulative scientific impact of the Thompson family's work. Each generation had approached scientific challenges with a unique blend of creativity, determination, and an almost intuitive understanding of molecular potential. The Galactic Trade Consortium's carefully constructed case began to crumble. Species that had previously shown little interest in human scientific contributions now demanded more information. The Zorn Collaborative requested full access to the Thompson family research archives. The Krelnak Scientific Council proposed collaborative research initiatives. Kithax, the lead prosecutor, watched in growing frustration as her carefully prepared case dissolved into a celebration of human innovation. Unexpected allies emerged from the most surprising locations. The Merchant Guild, initially supportive of the Trade Consortium's position, began to recalculate the potential economic value of the Thompson approach. If these recipes could be understood, even partially, the potential technological applications were astronomical. Ashley remained calm throughout the proceedings. Each piece of evidence, each testimony was another layer in a comprehensive demonstration of human potential. Dr. Marcos Rodriguez took the stand again, presenting a comprehensive analysis of the Thompson confectionary's defensive algorithms. "This is more than a protection system," he explained. "This is a method of scientific communication that operates on principles we're only beginning to comprehend." The hearing chamber's environmental systems seemed to resonate with the scientific information being presented. Holographic displays generated increasingly complex molecular diagrams that danced with an almost living quality. Representatives from independent trading worlds began to see the potential beyond simple corporate litigation. Here was a method of knowledge transmission that transcended traditional communication barriers, a way of sharing information that was simultaneously a defense mechanism, a scientific breakthrough, and a work of art. The Galactic Judicial Complex became a living testament to human creativity. What had begun as a simple hearing about corporate espionage had transformed into a moment of first contact, not between species, but between fundamentally different approaches to scientific understanding. As the proceedings continued, Ashley knew the real battle was just beginning. They had come to punish her. Instead, they would be forced to understand her. The molecular diagrams continued to generate, each one a story, each one a challenge that only humans could have conceived. The final ruling came not with a whimper, but with a spectacular demonstration that would be remembered across multiple star systems. The chief adjudicator of the Galactic Judicial Complex activated a comprehensive holographic display that chronicled the entire Thompson family legacy. Generations of scientific innovation materialized around the hearing chamber, a living museum of human potential that left the assembled delegates stunned. New interstellar regulations took shape before their eyes. The Rodriguez Protocol, named after Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, established comprehensive protections for independent researchers and small businesses. It recognized intellectual property as something far more complex than simple corporate ownership. Ashley Thompson stood at the center of a storm of scientific revelation. The Galactic Trade Consortium's attempt to crush a small family business had backfired spectacularly. Instead of destroying the Thompson confectionery, they had inadvertently created a watershed moment in interstellar scientific understanding. The compensation hearing transformed into something far more significant. The Vordak Merchant Syndicate was not only required to issue a public apology, but to establish a substantial research fund dedicated to supporting independent scientific innovation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez presented the final piece of evidence, a comprehensive analysis of the Thompson family's approach to scientific research. Each generation had approached seemingly impossible challenges with a combination of creativity, determination, and an almost magical ability to see connections others missed. Zarek Fax, the lead prosecutor, found herself in an unprecedented position. The Galactic Trade Consortium's carefully constructed case had not just fallen apart. It had been transformed into a celebration of human innovative potential. The hearing chamber buzzed with a new understanding. Species that had previously viewed humans as minor players in the galactic scientific community now saw them in a completely different light. The molecular synthesizer that Ashley had demonstrated became a turning point. Researchers from multiple star systems competed to understand its complexity. What appeared to be a simple candy-making device was actually a sophisticated platform for cross-species scientific communication. New research initiatives emerged almost immediately. The Proxima Centauri Culinary Institute proposed a comprehensive study of the Thompson approach to molecular engineering. The Zorn Collaborative requested full access to the family's research archives. Economic projections began to shift. The potential technological applications of the Thompson confectionery's research were astronomical. What had begun as a simple family business was now recognized as a critical scientific resource. The final ruling was unprecedented. The Thompson Confectionery would be granted special status as an independent research institution. Full protections would be extended to prevent any future attempts at corporate interference. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez summarized the significance of the moment. "This is more than a legal victory," he explained to the assembled delegates. "This is a fundamental reimagining of how we approach scientific innovation." The environmental systems of the hearing chamber seemed to resonate with the scientific information being presented. Holographic displays generated increasingly complex molecular diagrams that danced with an almost living quality. Ashley understood the true victory was not in the legal ruling, but in the fundamental shift of perspective. They had come to destroy her business. Instead, they had been forced to recognize the value of human creativity. The Merchant Guild's representatives began to recalculate economic projections. The potential technological applications of the Thompson approach were far more valuable than any attempt at corporate acquisition. As the proceedings concluded, Ashley looked at the generations of research preserved in her family's archives. Her great-grandmother's initial biochemical research, her grandmother's culinary innovations, her mother's quantum computational work, and now her own contribution to this extraordinary legacy. The Thompson Confectionery was no longer just a business. It was a testament to human potential. A small, unassuming candy shop had changed the course of galactic scientific understanding. Outside the hearing chamber, the first new research initiatives were already taking shape. Species from across the galaxy began to see the potential of a truly collaborative approach to scientific innovation. The molecular diagrams continued to generate, each one a story, each one a challenge that only humans could have conceived.